When I was younger, I fought in the Heartland War. The scars you impertinently assumed were transplant scars came from a grenade.
Which side were you on?
Do you know nothing about the Heartland War?
Well, it was the last chapter in our history book, but we had state testing, so we never got around to it.
Textbooks? Sugar-coated anyway. No one wants to remember how it really was. You asked which side I was on? Truth is, there were 3 sides to the war, not 2. There was the Life Army, the Choice Brigade, and the remains of the U.S. military whose job it was to keep the other 2 sides from killing each other. That's the side I was on. Unfortunately, we weren't very successful. You see, a conflict always begins with an issue. A difference of opinion, an argument. By the time it turns into a war, the issue doesn't matter anymore. Because it's about one thing, and one thing only. How much each side hates each other.
Trip's over, Sergeant.
There were dark days leading up to the war. Everything we think defines right and wrong, it was being turned upside down. On one side, people were murdering abortion doctors just to protect the right to life. On the other side, people were getting pregnant just to sell their fetal tissue. And everyone was selecting their leaders not by their ability to lead, but by where people stood on the single issue. It was beyond madness. Then the military fractured. Both sides got a hold of weapons of war. 2 opinions became 2 armies determined to destroy each other. And then came the Bill of Life. I was right there in the room when they come up with the idea the pregnancy could be terminated retroactively once a child reaches the age of reason. At first it was a joke. No one intended for it to be taken seriously, but that same year the Nobel Prize went to a scientist who perfected neurografting, the technique that allows every part of a donor to be used in a transplant. The war was getting worse. We brokered a peace by bringing both sides to the table. Then we proposed the idea of unwinding, which would terminate unwanteds without actually ending their lives. We thought it would shock both sides to see reason. That they would stare at each other across the table and someone would blink. But nobody blinked. The choice to terminate without ending life, it satisfied the needs of both sides. The Bill of Life was signed, the Unwind Accord went into effect, and war was over. Everyone was so happy to end the war. No one cared about the consequences. I'm sure you know the rest.
People wanted parts.
Demanded is more like it. A cancerous colon could be replaced with a healthy new one. An accident victim who would have died from internal injuries could get fresh new organs. A wrinkled, arthritic hand could be replaced with one 50 years younger. And all those new parts had to come from somewhere. Of course, if more people had been organ donors, unwinding never would have happened. And people like to keep what's theirs, even after they're dead. And it didn't take long for ethics to be crushed by greed.
Unwinding became a big business.
And people let it happen.
Right temporal. Right frontal. Right occipital. Right parietal. Cerebellum. Thalamus. Hypothalamus.